So do you think this one is kind of weird, Pet? That although smoking is not great, yes, but wouldn't you say that asbestos exposure is far worse, considering there is no cure for asbestos exposure?
Mm-hmm.
Smoking, there kind of is a cure when you think about it. It's not great for you, but you could say that there is a treatment operation, radiotherapy. Is that the one?
Yeah, at least some treatment.
There is something that can prevent it. And if it weren't for smoking, would cancer treatments be as advanced as they are? Yeah, shades of grey, right? It's shades of grey. Neither for nor against, just trying to look at it impartially. But asbestos, right? If it's in brickwork, yeah? It's all in brickwork and different things like that. It's lined underneath most council houses, let's say. And then no one is checking underneath your floors. And you've got gaping big holes appearing in the foundations, yes? Your floor slab, if you want to say that, is starting to come apart, and then you've got tenants that are experiencing this, let's say, and because it's letting in the mold, and we know how slack housing associations are, not all, but I'm going to say most, just don't care. And then you've got tenant after tenant after tenant after tenant after tenant who is homeless, low income. Is this not killing far more individuals?
Yeah.
And then you would have to have the trust in someone to do the correct type of post-mortem on you, yes?
Yeah.
So someone would have to check. And then, is there an incentive not to report on that? Because it's a big issue. And then, when I was asking about Google, I was asking Google Gemini, why don't they just start removing asbestos? And quite rightly, it said that there was more risk associated with removing it. But I think there's more risk in foundations splitting, people drilling into stuff, housing associations, can't even take care of mouldy properties. And I think that if it were a government, they would want to focus more on not just banning it, but if you can't look after it and you can't check it underneath floors and different things like that, because it doesn't just pose a risk to people who are moving in and out of council houses, and then we wonder why kids get cancer and dogs get cancer that have never been in smoke environments, which is quite a lot, by the way. It's a big chunk. And then they blame this on passive smoking. But no one's looking at, is that asbestos? Well, no, because we've got a test for that. Well, do you know how expensive it would be to test everyone? It's just easy. We see cancer. That's it. We don't need to find out why that is. Oh, it's a mystery. These people have never smoked in their lives, never drunk alcohol, but then they've got cancer. It must be genetics. Are you sure? And then all of this, let's say you demolish a building or the building starts to crumble and fall down, and it's releasing this into the atmosphere around with all the neighbours that live about and different things like that. And I'll be like, well, we took it down in the winter. Well, what more do you want? Well, then that's coated on all the hedges and fences and sheds and all over the garden. We know when you blow bubbles, do you see how far they go? And in which direction they go? They go all but everywhere, yes?
Yeah.
And these fibres then will begin to dry out because, winter turns into summer. It doesn't turn into summer because it will go spring first. But, eventually summer will roll around. You get a nice gust of breeze, and you're outside and you breathe in that nice gust of air that's just hit you. You've got your windows open, it's all coming through your house, right? And now you've breathed it. And your neighbours and your community has now breathed it. And if this is going on inside a house, and your neighbouring house or a house over the road, or you're out in the street and you walk by a house because no one's checking the foundations or cracks and holes in that start to rise up. If you've got a problem with damp and the building's got a history of asbestos, do you think that it would be worth pulling down that building?
Yeah.
Where are all of these do-gooders, people called them, do-gooders that wanted to get smoking banned? Okay, mission accomplished. Well done. Next, what about asbestos? It is everywhere. In this building, it is in everything. It's in the cement, apparently. It's in the Artex. It's in the flooring. It's been used as underlay. No, what do you call it? Replenisher. A barrier. It's in bitumen on the floor, and it's on the floor as well as in the floor, as well as under the floor, as well as on the ceiling. It's been used in insulation. It's on tiles. Yeah, this place is pretty much an asbestos poison place, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
You see, the one thing that I used to wonder was why do empty council houses don't pay the landlord, CEO, doesn't pay council tax? I think they're owned by the council. But they've just put a CEO in charge because they don't want to take responsibility for anything that goes on. And they can just pretend to point and poke the wink landlord or association. Do you see what? And don't you think that if Labour wants to fill this tax budget of theirs, well, you would be charging tax on a building that's empty, regardless. Not for 6 months, not giving them free 6 months, not giving them a free year's worth of no tax. You would be taxing these corporations, especially the housing sectors and private sectors. I don't know if you know that, but no building gets taxed for that. Wouldn't you be employing more people, well, to maintain and check the foundations on buildings, which you would kill two birds with one stone, although pretty morbid expression. But if you find mould, you would be killing the mould as well as maintaining the asbestos in the flooring to make sure it's not splitting apart and getting into the atmosphere, right? Or in the communities. And again, the reasons for it being used because it's so durable. I don't think it's durable. No, I don't think it's durable. I'm not going to say that stuff is durable. You see the cracks over there, yeah? You see the cracks in it. It's definitely not durable. It breaks a lot. So, with it being in the flooring, in the bitumen, and there are cracks in it, this doesn't pose a health risk.
It releases the fibers, and they are quite short,
and
from what I heard.
It's not curable. Where's the government when you need them? There'd be a great taxation on the building until it's been remedied, right? But there's nothing. I mean, if you trust these asbestos reports that come around, which I most certainly don't, because they miss an awful lot.
Yeah.
They miss so much that there's some of it that they do tell you, and then the landlord chooses not to give you this information.
Yeah.
Interesting. And you would then unknowingly drill into something. I've breathed this. Everyone in this house has breathed it. I'm pretty sure that anyone that's looked around this house has breathed it. All the past tenants that have been here, you've breathed it. For as long as the mould has been coming through.
Yeah.
And then the landlord not doing anything about it. Now it's becoming apparent as to why the landlord hasn't done anything about it. Why the hesitancy now that they're backpedaling on whether they want to do this silicone job or not. Well, because you know it's asbestos. And you know that to fix the foundations is going to, pose a serious health risk. And it's going to be expensive and no one wants it. So it's okay to let people suffer in that environment. I think this is what it's boiling down to. And the council, we don't see anything. We don't. We just don't. And I just find that very weird. Again, when looking into it, it just sort of like nudge, nudge, wink, wink. That CEO over there, naughty. Don't worry, we'll make this go away. Where is it to be protected from this type of thing? And I just don't see it, to be honest. I just see it just covering arse on this stuff over and over.
Yeah.
And they say, it's in a lot of old buildings. Most of the old buildings that I know about have zero asbestos in it.
Yeah, the really old buildings, and they lasted centuries.
Yeah, and they've withstood fire. That's one of the biggest reasons as to why they use asbestos is because of its ability to, be fire retardant. How many buildings have been saved after a fire that you can name
I don't know.
that have asbestos in it? And then that's like saying that the furniture and the objects inside the house are not fire retardant or are flammable, but yet the building itself is not flammable. How many buildings have been saved after a fire? Oh, thank God we had asbestos in there. This building stood because of the asbestos. Never heard it.
No.
I've never heard it. And then they say that these tiles could contain asbestos, but don't worry, it's not flammable. I can guarantee you if I put those in a fire, it's like saying that, oh, diesel's not flammable. Take a rag to it then. Put it already into a fire when something's inferno. I'm not 100% sure I believe that it's not flammable. I can't say that I can believe that. And then, so let me get this straight. It's not flammable, but does it shatter in heat? Most things break apart when it's hot. Do buildings collapse in the fire? So if that is true, then when this building is inferno and it collapses down, it's not sending like lots of dust into the atmosphere.
Oh yeah, it will.
With the heat.
It would.
And the smoke.
Yeah, all the fibers would nicely fly.
And they get nice and hot, and they travel up really far, and they can get many other miles away.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Damn, I'm surprised firefighters aren't paid more.
Yeah.
This is so weird. And then it's like most people who are on social housing or anything else like that, why is it these buildings seem to be littered in asbestos? Nearly all of them. Nearly every single one. And only what you can see is checked, but anything that's going on underground, and you've got floorboards with little bits that have air bricks that come in and catch a draft, not collecting any of those fibres at all and putting them up through your whole entire house, and you've now got an extractor fan on, and then they're whizzing out to your neighbour's house and to anybody else.
Yeah.
And then to your community.
And
they're not on your clothing, and then when you put your jacket on in someone else's car, we're not travelling this asbestos into the people that are around us, taxi drivers, bus drivers, trains. We're not spreading this in any way? Well, if it's not being looked, then you can't argue it, really, can you?
No.
So these dust fibres are not on clothes, and then you go and hang your washing outside. You have all your windows open in the summer, and it's not getting into the community. It's not affecting birds. It's not affecting animals. It's not affecting anybody around the vicinity at all. Not at all. Not in the slightest. It's not when you're walking into a shop and you're walking past people, these fibres aren't blowing in your stream towards anybody else as you move. Interesting. That is very interesting to me. And then it's not posing a risk to people all the way across the board.
It is.
So unless you wrap yourself up in a bubble, wow. And then any work trades people that come in, I say people because I don't want to say workmen, it's not putting their lives at risk. Because remember, no amount is safe. No small amount that you breathe in is safe. None of it. Despite what, it was almost like they were trying to convince me of something like, that it isn't this. It's, you have got nothing to worry about. Really? Are you trying to tell me that, or are you telling yourself that? And then everybody responds to it differently, don't they? But no amount is safe.
Yeah, no known amount is safe. You can have one fibre somewhere and it will land in your lungs and cause damage.
Well, I've called the council out because there is damaged asbestos from a past tenant. I was never told about there being asbestos in this building. Bit late now. And a light that was fixed by a past tenant. So obviously that tenant wasn't told, because there's no way they would knowingly go and put a light into asbestos. So they haven't been told. Wow, Saffron, you seem to have a lot of history of this. But then when I bring the council out, health and safety, they don't want to look. They've hid behind it. They didn't want to look at it. They didn't want to know. It was practically in their baddest taste that I was even telling them about. They just la. They didn't want to know. So clearly they know about it. They didn't want to know about it. They didn't put it down in their report. I've told them that I've breathed this in, and do you know what they said?
That there's plenty in the air.
The landlord knows about it, and then they're all pointing the blame at each other. Well, it's your landlord's responsibility. Well, it's health and safety. Well, it's this. Well, it's that. So an environmental health and safety officer from the council, yes?
Yeah.
That is supposed to be here for your health, my health, everybody else's health. Then this poses another question to me. How many other people have you done this to?
Yeah.
How many other people have you hid this underneath? You've just wiped this under the carpet. Then, how many other housing associations out there are also not giving their tenants? You know, it's a lovely house, you know, when you bid on here or you come to this house, it's got 3 bedrooms, it's got a loft space, it's got a big garden, also contains asbestos. I think this should be mandatory. I think it should be mandatory that this is explained out to us. It should be told. But it's not. That's very interesting to me, that is. Then if it's in the cement and the brickwork and everywhere else, they just demolished the chimney today.
Yeah.
I mean,
they might have had a mask, but then they took the mask off, probably.
It's brick dust.
And had it all over their clothes.
Well, shouldn't that have been wet down? Well, it was in the winter. No, I mean, like for the neighbouring houses in the community. So what's we got? Lead in paint, lead pipes. We didn't know. Sure. Asbestos. Because we need to save the building if it ever catches fire. Can you actually prove one building that has stood standing and someone's gone? You know why the word best is inside asbestos? No idea. Because that building caught fire 17 times. And if it weren't for the asbestos, you wouldn't have a house. Have you ever heard it? I've never heard that.
No.
I've never heard anyone come out with that.
And once the walls are kind of charred, that's probably damage as well, even if it stands.
But it is illegal for you to smoke marijuana because it causes lots of deadly problems. Wait a second. Wait, what? It's legal to be in a building that's unchecked, unmaintenanced, on asbestos, but it's not okay to smoke that. Yeah. So forcefully, I can breathe these particles into me, unknowingly breathe these particles in, because no one has disclosed it to anyone, but yet it's not okay for me to choose what I want to breathe into my body. Okay. Only when you say that I can breathe those things into my body. I mean, that is something.
Really?
That's very interesting. That is very interesting. Well, we've made it illegal for you to buy it, but it's okay for it to still stay in the structures that are about today.
Yeah.
Why have you left this floor in? Well, because it contains asbestos. We didn't want to pull it up. No one has said anything. And if it is true, who cut it? It's all right. We will just come out and we will put some... we'll just fix the asbestos that's been broken. Bit late. I've already breathed it. Yeah, I went to go and pull the light down because it was battery operated. I assumed it being in there. It was already... You know, this is non-asbestos because no one is going to do that. Pull it out because it needed the batteries changing in it. I don't know. It was already here. It's got batteries in it. Oh, let's take those out. Put some new ones in. But as I went to pull it out, it pulled a screw. Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, I better put this one in. I breathed it, and then based on assumption, oh my god, that must not be asbestos then. And I have touched it myself. I mean, come on, this is fucked up. So via association, and they say, well, you never asked. Hang on a minute. There's a big difference between moving into a building and you not disclosing versus somebody not asking. That's...
Yeah, you shouldn't have to ask a thing like that.
And again, you've let me a house that has damaged asbestos in it in more than one area. They wouldn't fix a leaking toilet, this is all making sense now, because it's got asbestos bitumen. Someone has plastered it all over the... And then they say it's the tiles, but he was on about the bitumen, weren't he? He said bitumen, he didn't say tiles. Tiles is in the report. Bitumen, that's apparently asbestos too. Oh, right. I understand. That's
so
making
is the
sense.
tiles on the top?
Apparently so. He was on about that grey stuff that's over the toilet bit.
Yeah.
You know, over that back bit where it's leaking.
Uh-huh.
And then when that guy came out, the plumber, who's retired, yes, and he's touching it with his screwdriver. Look, I don't see a leak. What do you think he was doing? Oh, that's interesting. Now, if that part is asbestos, then
he's disturbed
it.
Yeah.
Once again. And then they refuse to fix the toilet, so it's been leaking underneath the house. I mean, there's a lot going on. Now with all of that drying out, stink of mold, absolute stench of it. Are you sure the fibres are not coming loose too? Interesting. This is absolutely interesting. Okay then. Alright then. So we got to ban smoking. We got to do this. We got to do that. Right, okay. That's weird. But something where there's no cure. We're going to do nothing. See this carpet? That's exactly what we're going to do. Put a carpet on it. This is weird. It's absolutely weird. Anyway, gonna leave it here. Got things to do.